A lot of my friends say that PCGs are a cool concept, but they would rather play video games instead, and just don't want to make them. While I understand that and actually kind of agree, there's just something so magical about PCGs that can't be matched, at least not in the same way, by video games. Being able to pick your dialogue in an open world RPG game is great, but nothing can match being able to talk to a real person. Lots of video games attempt to be immersive, trying to create a world that feels like it could exist. But the dialogue options make the player remember it's not real. The PCG master can change their voice accordingly, depending on the characters that they're voicing. You can say anything to that character. You can even be trying to trick the character into doing something that even the PCG master might not be aware of. Sometimes, the puzzle's only talking to someone, maybe trying to convince them into doing something. Or maybe there's two parts of the puzzle. You're cornered by bad guys and you need to first convince your friend to give you his weapon, and in the second part you need to somehow defeat them. The first time I felt super interested in PCGs was after I watched Zach's video on the first PCG ever made. I've watched some of his other videos before, but nothing made me as interested in PCGs as this one. While Zach was playing the game, he tried taking an apple, and it worked. He broke off a twig after that, and it worked as well. At the time, that blew my mind. It was just like real life. You can now do anything you want. The possibilities for puzzle solving are now endless. Even if the creator didn't intend for you to break off a twig, you can still do it. That video was what made me want to make a PCG, and still what makes me want to make a PCG all these years later. Okay, I really have to emphasize on how mind-blowing this is. This is a game, on paper, where you can do anything you want, like real life. That's crazy. And so, I made my first PCG, and it sucked. I asked Salman for a game room, and look, I literally said it was bad right there. I asked if anyone wanted to play the PCG, and Eldritch responded right away. Remember, this was before the game room notifications roll, so the fact that he responded right away was pretty cool. Now unfortunately, the screens and playthrough are both lost to time, but I'll try to remember what happened. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad that that happened. The game was so bad that I'm actually kind of happy. It's only bad for the video. This game was called Rise of the Tiger's Knight. In the game, you're a thief breaking in and stealing from a house. Your goal is to steal until the profit of what you stole reaches a specific amount of money, where you can then escape and win the game. The idea was actually inspired by a Roblox game called Sneak Thief. You probably think that the concept of the PCG is fine. You would be correct, but it was terribly executed. You can tell I borrowed the mindset of the original PCG because you can do anything you want, even if I didn't intend for you to do it. But the only screen I made is where you're outside of the house that you're robbing. My plan was to make the screens as the game goes on. A horrible idea, by the way. The house was also a recreation of my real house. Early on, I was getting tired of making new screens, so this is what I did. I took pictures of my real house, which sounds dumb, but it actually worked decently for a while. For a while, that is. The problem was that the PCG was incredibly stupid. The PCG didn't capture the thrill of stealing from a house at all. Don't get me wrong, it was fun, but it was dumb. Because the experience wasn't scripted, the game felt unprofessional. That's why I never made a PCG like that again. I mean, sure, it was my fault because the PCG was terribly made, but I've never seen any new games being made like the original one, with the same freedom in gameplay. Just look at Epic's new PCGs. That tree right there is only added so you can easily kill the guards. These bushes are only added for the player to hide in. My point is, nothing in the PCGs are added for immersion purposes. Everything only exists for the sake of the puzzle. Which that means no more clever puzzle solving that the PCG master didn't intend, which makes the PCGs much more scripted. You can still do whatever you want in the new games, but the games feel so much more linear this way, with less things for the player to interact with in the environment. Have paper computer games simply moved on from its original formula? It's probably just evolution, but what's the reason for it? I mean, sure, it makes the games more professional, but at the same time, the change loses a piece of what makes PCG so special. I think the change itself is fine, but I still want the older PCGs to exist. I find it weird that I'm the only person talking about this. Not even Zach did in his All Types of PCGs video. I feel like it's important to talk about this because I don't want the old games to go extinct. Even though I prefer the newer style, I still enjoy the old one. I think the old style works great and this is actually the reason why I wanted to make this video. My friend that lives far away came to my house with his family last summer. While we were going somewhere, and we were bored with nothing to do, I decided to show him what PCGs are. And it was easy because he had a general idea of how to play Dungeons and Dragons. He was interested and wanted to play a no-screen PCG where he was the PCG master, and it wasn't scripted. The experience was honestly a lot of fun, and it changed my perspective on PCGs that aren't scripted. But the question is, are they worth playing when you have access to proper PCG making supplies? Personally, I still prefer scripted PCGs, but sometimes I want to play a non-scripted one. Another example of a non-scripted PCG is the Tiger series, a series that Epic Worlds PCG made for me. The games work like this. I tried beating the game by completing the objective, but the things I do will impact the next game. PCGs sometimes have a problem where, let's say you're being chased with your friend by enemies. Your friend is very important for future lore, but the player decides to betray him and escape on their own. This happened a lot when people were playing my PCG Agent Peanut Escapes. They always tried betraying Prince Jones and trying to escape on their own. Technically, the player didn't lose, but what should the PCG master do? Most would just not let the player do that, but this isn't a problem with the Tiger series. Since the next game will be affected depending on what I do, Epic can just let me do whatever I want. For example, I lied to a guard called Fenley, saying I would give him a crystal if he opened a portal for me, but I ended up jumping in the portal without giving it to him. So in the next game, Epic made Fenley try to hunt me down. This game is also made for me, and not for anyone else, so I would enjoy the games a lot. And I think that's why Zach enjoyed the first paper computer game so much, because it was made for him. My point is, I think we should try to make PCGs in the old style, and people should experiment with their PCG making, and just overall, have fun. You should just make what you enjoy. That's all I have for you guys today, and PCG YA LATER.